welcome to episode 61 of Games My Mom Found. Wow. Who are the evil residents with me tonight?
Resident Stefan JD.
Evil Stuart Hughes.
Biohazardous Jesse Chavez.
Okay. And for those confused, because the title will not say Resident Evil in this title, well, you'll find out in 1 second why we said all that.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get too far, two things I want to do. One, I want to give a quick shout out to another podcast that I actually just started listening to. I ran into the host in another group I'm in called Some of My Friends Read Comics. It's a comic book podcast where each week they kind of do what we do once a month, which is going to be more soon, and dive into different comic books, like a different story arc, and kind of talk about it. So if you like our comic episodes, definitely give them a check them out.
Man, podcast names are getting longer these days. So the next one's going to be like that thing that we saw that we did that time.
I bet you there's something like that I could find.
It's gonna turn into like anime. Like, is it wrong to talk about video games on a podcast?
Find out here.
In honor of bad Japanese to English translations, I looked up my name in Japanese, how to say it, and I don't even know how to begin. Tsuchiwatu Hyuzu.
One more thing I also want to do. It's a new thing I'm going to try to start doing. Each month, I want to recognize which state out of the U.S. had the most downloads for us, and what country outside the U.S. had the most downloads. That's going to be a new thing I want to start. Unfortunately, I didn't think about it until after we recorded the first episode of March, because it didn't come to me right away. So from now on, it will be the first week of the month, but I do want to give a quick shout out first. I don't understand why, but the number one state was Oklahoma last month for downloads.
Oklahoma.
Okay.
Oh.
And which is odd because Oklahoma was never one of our top states before. So awesome to all you Oklahoma-ers out there. That's what we're going to call you. Yeah. And second was Illinois. Third was Cali. And the number one country,
I think it's Oklahomans.
Is it?
Yes.
It sounds about right. I'll go with it.
I didn't know we were doing this.
I know. I don't communicate. And the number one country besides the United States was Mexico. So thank you out there, Mexico.
Oklahomans or Okies?
All right. Stefan, you want to introduce what lovely game you picked out for us tonight?
We are playing Sweet Home, the survival horror role-playing game made by Capcom in 1989, which didn't get a release here, and it was a movie-based game, so this game is a property. It's an IP.
Yes. And why are we playing this game, Stefan?
And we are playing this game because it's basically what inspired Resident Evil, one of the greatest Capcom series of all time. I actually have a quote from Shinji Mikami about that. He said, and I quote, "The meeting that got the ball rolling on Resident Evil 3 was in 93. We were in Capcom's Osaka development studio, and my current boss, Tokuro Fujiwara, called me in to talk to him. He said that he wanted us to make a horror game using systems from Sweet Home, which was a horror game on the Famicom that he had directed." So, yeah, it's definitely, when you play this game, and we'll talk about it, you can definitely feel Resident Evil in there.
Oh, yeah. It's 100% Resident Evil.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And Fujiwara would become a producer of Resident Evil as well.
Yep.
Yeah. For our audience, Tokuro Fujiwara was like a very early director. He basically helped build Capcom.
Yeah, brick by brick.
Yeah, directed a lot of those early games. Helped make Mega Man, Bionic Commando, Sweet Home. I think he's been a producer on almost every single Mega Man game.
That sounds about right.
Can't believe I played this game.
He made Ghosts and Goblins.
One thing I want to say before we get
a game that may end up being on the podcast in the future.
Well,
I gotta save states. I'm okay. But I almost gave up on this game. The first day I started playing it for the show was like a Wednesday, and we record on Sundays for those that don't know. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? And I'm trying to play it. I had to restart the opening thing 3 times, and I was ready to be like, fuck this game. I'm done. Fuck Stefan and his damn picks. Fuck this. And I started watching a YouTube video, and I followed along with a YouTube video, and I'm like, and then I started to understand the game.
So we should probably set this up a little bit, because it's the movie explains the game, because the game kind of explains what's going on like bit by bit, because you have to go take pictures of the things called frescoes, which are basically murals. But
on a wall.
Yeah, it's they all look the same.
Yes, they do.
But it starts with this dude who was like a famous painter in a mansion, and his wife was Lady Mamiya, I think it's pronounced.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so basically her baby was playing in a furnace for some reason, and she turned on the furnace like a bad parent, and it died and burned to death. And so she went a little crazy and decided to kidnap some kids and then burn them in the furnace too.
Yep.
To give her child some playmates.
Oh, wait, hold on, guys. I got a siren in the background. Sorry.
That's all right.
Now we're a real podcast.
But so yeah, eventually people came seeking revenge, obviously, from the town, and she couldn't deal with it, so she tossed herself in the furnace, and now she haunts the mansion. And these camera crews and documentarians get the bright idea that they want to cover the art of Lady Mamiya's husband, and they go to the mansion, and then they get trapped in there, and that's Sweet Home.
That's funny. I was just talking to somebody the other day about. It's like we were talking about like how Japan has like a weird amount of serial killers and people who just like break. You're like, I guess it's because like the whole society is pretty like uptight and constantly under like a extreme amount of pressure. People just like kind of break over there. So we're like, yeah, serial killers just show up in like almost any Japanese media. Suddenly there's a serial killer. It doesn't matter if it's like a kid show or like a cartoon. You're like, we have to stop. We have to go save this Pokemon. And also there's a serial killer on the loose.
Wasn't there like a weird statistic somewhere that said like every 10 years you're probably going to walk by a serial killer at some point in your life?
It's more than 10 years.
That? Yeah.
That makes total sense to me.
Future serial killers.
About.
I think Japan also has like one of the highest per capita. I have no idea if this is true. This is something I think I heard once, so no idea if this is accurate. I've never seen like some stat like Japan has like the highest per capita like amount of female serial killers.
I believe it.
I don't know. I watch that show Deadly Women all the time, and oddly enough, they all like are based in Arizona.
Yeah, it's all whenever you watch those shows, like any show on ID, like Snapped. I fucking love Snapped. And then she snapped.
Yeah, and
it's always like in the middle of the Midwest, like some nowhere town.
That's what happens when you live in the middle of nowhere. Bad things happen.
Karen get out of her small town life, and then she snapped. That's every episode.
It's never a light step. It's never like, and she got revenge by baking X-Lax into the church camp brownies or something. And so no, then she just fucking murdered everybody.
All right,
and they always have the line, "Rumors spread fast in a small town." It's like you can't say that every episode.
Yeah,
they can because you keep watching. So,
but yeah, as you were saying, Mike, about the game. Sorry,
so this game is for NES, and it looks kind of like Dragon Warrior in your early Final Fantasy games. Well, more Dragon Warrior. It is turn-based. Like it actually works as a survival horror game. When I didn't expect that, like I knew of this game going in. I had heard of it. I have never played it, but I've always been interested to try it. Then I went away in the first hour or first 10 minutes, but.
I was about an hour in and I was like, I know exactly why Stefan loves this game. And I got like another hour and I was like, Mike is gonna hate this game.
Well, what we should say is each character only has 3 item slots. 1 item that each character starts with, and 2 empty item slots to carry random items that you're going to find throughout the game. Plus, they can hold 1 weapon.
And they one weapon, which the weapons I thought were really funny until I watched the movie, and I was like, okay, now the weapons make sense to me.
Oh, they're from the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a reason the weapon as you go through the mansion, the weapons get like more and more powerful. You know, your basic turn-based fighter.
Yeah.
And like one of the most powerful weapons is a pitchfork. And I was like, why is a pitchfork the most powerful weapon in the game? And I watched the movie and I was like, oh, okay. That makes sense.
They kill someone with a pitchfork or something?
Yeah.
In the end?
Yeah, okay. A pitchfork is a weapon in the movie.
I think at one point, doesn't she even throw a stroller at Lady Mamiya?
Yeah.
I was like, where's the stroller weapon? I want to use that.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about the
ugly
movie
yellow dress
a fair amount.
Yeah.
Just because the game is so inspired by it.
Mm-hmm.
You actually do get the dress.
Well, I mean,
the dress is a thing in the game. It's an item.
I didn't get it. Right. Yeah. I heard my guide, one of the many guides I looked up talk about it, but it isn't. I didn't need it to beat it.
Yeah,
I didn't come across it in mine.
Just ups your praying power.
What the fuck did praying do anyway?
Okay. So
It's magic. It's the game's magic mechanic.
It's MP.
It's the only game. It is the only situation where thoughts and prayers are actually effective, unfortunately.
What are you talking about? Paul Ryan went on record and said, we're going to do thoughts and prayers because thoughts and prayers work.
Yes.
Thoughts and prayers are going to go there.
I always quote that quote because he said that bullshit. So I always make fun of that quote. Whether or not, whatever you believe, whatever, it's still a dumb quote from a politician.
Thoughts and prayers are going to be how we stop Corona.
We'll talk about that in 2 weeks.
But yeah,
It
like
is
I
a
like
tough
how
fear.
essentially like I was like every time I saw prayer points on the screen, I like laughed a little bit because all I could think was, yeah, that's basically what Final Fantasy is. Like there's magic in Final Fantasy, but basically in Final Fantasy, magic is just praying. It would make much more sense to call them prayer points, or not even prayer points, pray points.
Well, that's the thing too, is like if a chandelier is going to fall on you, are you going to dive out of the way or pray?
Yeah,
I
pray.
mean, definitely pray,
Gotta
right?
pray the chandelier away.
Yep.
I like to imagine that when it actually works and saves you from damage, it's just like, oh, it landed to the left of me. Sweet.
We should note that some things are going to come up. We'll probably make fun of like a couple things in this game, but
Yes.
this game was not released here, so all of us played a fan translation. There are various fan translations out there,
Mm-hmm.
and like some of them are better than others. The one I played, for instance, had pray points, and I thought that was really funny.
I'm assuming we all played the one from our buddy Vim, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, mine was from Gaijin.
I played another one.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I had pray. Like there was a line that came up at some point that was like, "You don't have enough pray points," and I was like, "Not getting into heaven this way."
Yeah.
Time to turn up the prayer conditioning.
I gotta up my pray.
So something that Jesse pointed out to me that I didn't notice even after I should mention too, I literally just beat this game minutes ago before we started recording.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna finish this or we're not recording. It's gonna happen. But something that Jesse had pointed out to me is that I was bitching about the players, how they only have 2 slots to carry around in inventory. I'm like, at least they give you 6 in Resident Evil. But if you put all the players together, you do get that 6. So I mean, it's there.
I like at first I was like, oh man, this is I immediately my heart sank started playing this game because I was like, it's like there are 5 characters and you essentially play as all 5 and move them around, and I was like, oh Jesus Christ, this is just gonna be Resident Evil 0. Oh no.
But there's no leeches. We know how
works.
much Stefan loves leeches.
Well, there's kind of leeches.
Yeah.
There's worms. You have to, at multiple points in the game, you have to fight hallways filled with worms.
Yeah.
Which actually isn't a thing in a movie. That was added for the game.
Well, yeah, it's kind of that thing that they did with a lot of NES games back in the day. Kind of like how Friday the 13th, you don't just fight Jason, you fight zombies and bats and other random creatures and shit.
Vaguely horror elements thrown in there. But then like some other stuff is like directly taken from the movie. And then there's a lot of things that are directly taken from the game and put into Resident Evil, which I wasn't expecting how much of this game would feel like Resident Evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like the door animations are directly ported to Resident Evil.
Yes, they were. I like them. I mean, they open and then you go through them, but it was still cool to see the whole door animation. I'm like,
Yeah.
We should explain the team too. This game is not easy in any way. I think I died the first 5 times I played it before I even got it. And part of the reason for that is that your team, you can only have 3 people together. There's 5 of them, and you can only have 3 to a team or 2 in the other. And part of the problem of that is that when you're fighting something, sometimes you can use this little command called call and get the other teams to come over and help you. So essentially, they're all there. Like Final Fantasy, you have a team lined up, but you have to stay close to each other. Otherwise, you'll die.
Actually, I ended up really liking that mechanic. I thought it ended up being really cool.
Yeah.
Because I had like my Vanguard team. I was like, okay, these 2 are like really strong. So they're going to go in first and do the fighting. Which not that really matters because it's an early fighting game. So enemies just kind of like appear. You just will be walking and like the battle music starts playing. You're like, all right, we're doing this.
early RPG. You keep saying fighter and it's bothering me.
Sorry, early RPG.
Early RPG fighters.
Early RPG. All games are fighting games, really, when you get down to it. Minecraft is a fighting game.
It looks
You
like
fight
original Final Fantasy or Dragon Warrior where you're walking top down in a place, sprites are about the same size, and like in Dragon Warrior you get into a random battle with an enemy, but you can't see any of your characters, just their name. For those that
it's more like Earthbound in that way. Yeah, you
Dragon
just see
Warrior
the
does
enemy.
this too.
Mm-hmm.
Early Dragon Warrior up till 8 did that.
It's very similar to Inuyasha, Curse of the Shikonu Jewel. All right, so or sorry,
Yeah.
Secret of the Cursed Mask.
When is that going to be on this show?
It might be on my list for next season.
So
I've just been waiting for us to be able to do longer games and just waiting to throw that on there.
I mean, I gotta say, like when I was excited to play an RPG on the show again, because we haven't played a actual RPG since Golden Sun, which was a long time ago.
We're about to play a shitload of them back to back, so we'll see how that goes.
Well,
Depending on
I
how we
mean-
do next season.
Yeah, we're playing a few. I was excited, and then I kind of turned, but then this game got to a point where I started to actually turn around on it. Like at first, I didn't like switching between characters. I ran from almost every fight in this game that I could because I was using save states. I would just like save, load, and I could easily run from fights that way.
Oh, but you can't run from fights because you need to be a certain level towards the end of the game.
I maxed out near there just because I hadn't good enough weapons.
I had to do a fair amount of grinding at the end.
Yeah, I think I was on
Turbo
level 12 when I started grinding. But like the thing about this game, and everyone should do this if they're going to play it, is just grind early because it's so easy to level up in this game, and you literally max out at level 20. So just do it.
It's not even like a grinding thing. It's more like just explore, and you will get in enough fights for it to not matter.
Right.
I mean,
Like I didn't do that much exploring, and had I done more, it would have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what broke me was I love RPGs and I love leveling, but I couldn't just heal myself. Like in this game, the only way to heal is to find stupid tonics that are spread throughout the game. I mean, there's a decent amount, I feel like, in the end, but I want an inn. I want to put up a tent. I want to just be able to rest when I feel like it. Not, you got to find that one item here and there.
Well, that's that survival horror influence right there. I mean, it's, very limited supplies.
Yeah,
I like
survival horror. I play a lot now.
I've slowly gone away from survival horrors, weirdly. But I'm trying, as I've mentioned before on the show, I'm trying to play like not just on this show, but outside the show. I'm trying to play games that are like outside my usual area. So trying to like expand my boundaries.
I feel like this game's kind of a good candidate for that because honestly, I haven't seen too many horror RPGs in my day. I know there's probably a few more out there, but like yeah, for me, like the only ones I've come across is this and Parasite Eve. So it's always nice. It's like, hey, you got your peanut butter and my chocolate,
I feel like games is the only way I can like fully enjoy Japanese horror. Because I like Japanese horror movies. Like I like Ringu and like The Tale of Two Sisters. I like those movies a lot, but Japanese horror is like on a different level than any other horror in any other like country.
Yeah, even the movie to this game, it's like some of the music just doesn't belong in there. It's just this really happy-go-lucky soundtrack, and then all of a sudden it's dark and brooding, and it makes no sense.
I don't even know how to describe it because it's not like surrealist. I mean, there are elements of like surrealism in Japanese horror, but it's more like pure psychological, I guess, of this is weird and it doesn't make sense in the context of the movie, but it's really just you out as an audience member. Japanese horror is something I've never like fully connected to.
I agree. It's when it comes to Japanese horror, I feel like they kind of take psychological horror to the next level.
Yeah.
It was one of the reasons I really appreciated Silent Hill because it was, strangely enough, it was American horror through the lens of Japanese horror. So it was that weird cross combo.
That's a good you should be on the episode. That's a good description of it though. There's a couple movies I think some horror movies now are going there. Like the Insidious movies and Sinister movies. I don't really like those, but I feel like they're more Japanese in their style than like a standard horror film. I don't know. America to me has never had. There are good horror movies, but America to me has never had like the best horror movies.
Well, early horror, I think we were kind of stronger, but these days we're kind of just recycling what we steal from other countries.
Yeah. South Korea and Italy, I think will always have us beat.
Yeah.
South Korean horror. Oh my god, that shit freaks me the fuck out. I can't do it.
South Korean pop music, BTS, can't do it.
Yeah. South
do it.
Korea is like they on the real shit. They South Korea is on like a completely different level than any other country with media. I don't understand it.
I do want to say this game does a good job. Like throughout the entire premise of the game is, as I was saying a little bit earlier, each character has their own unique item. So as you're moving the two teams around, you're trying to solve different puzzles. Like you'll find broken glass laying around, and you got to suck it up with the vacuum because you can't step on it.
Vacuum cleaner.
You'll find locked door. You'll find ropes. You have to burn with a lighter.
Yeah.
It's just weird. And a camera, because you have to take pictures of these portraits after you sometimes suck the dust off, take a picture of it, then it gives you a clue to what to do next in the game. And that's kind of like the checkpoints as you progress through this game.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of fucking traps.
There are. I like how all the items make perfect sense except for the vacuum cleaner.
It's the most sexist weapon in the game.
I didn't know it was a girl until the end when you have to fight the clones. I thought it was a guy the entire time.
Asuka's a girl's name.
It's the only reason I put two and two together.
I did, yeah. I thought that was really fucking weird until I watched the movie, and I was like, oh, she's supposed to be like the art restorer. Like she's an art restorer in the movie, so it makes sense that she has a vacuum cleaner. Because like the first thing she does in the movie is like start vacuuming off the walls to reveal the frescoes underneath, and that's like a direct thing that happens in the game. You have to. I always kept Asuka and Ryo Taguchi together because Asuka could vacuum off the frescoes, and then Ryo could take a picture of them, and you take pictures of the frescoes to get clues.
It makes sense too. They're kind of like a bumbling duo in the movie a little bit, or at least a couple.
Bumbling duo / one is like like sexually stalking and assaulting one of them, and the other is just like a weirdo who immediately loses her mind.
Yeah, pretty much.
But in the terms of Japanese horror, yeah, bumbling duo.
I did not want to watch.
It's all right. It's weird. It's all right. It reminded me a lot of like Rose Red or
good movie.
TV show. Miniseries.
Miniseries, yeah.
Not mini-series. Fuck you. You call? Yeah, I love Rose Red a lot. I know a lot of people don't. I love Rose Red. And then like had some like I was getting like Haunting of Hill House vibes, but then I looked into the movie, and one of the writers was like, "Yeah, we were inspired by The Haunting," and I was like, "Okay, yeah, that makes sense."
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. Funny enough, Rose Red was basically Stephen King's script for the adaptation of The Haunting that they nixed in favor of that Catherine Zeta-Jones version they did.
Owen Wilson poorly is CGI'd headless.
Yes. Like your movie's bad if lesbian Catherine Zeta-Jones can't save it. But anyway.
Yeah. Oh, God. That movie should have... Oh, God. That movie had fucking... This is a tangent, but that movie had Catherine Zeta-Jones, Owen Wilson, and Liam Neeson in it. I can't remember the other female actress, but
Lily Cooper or something.
Yeah, those three actors alone should have been enough. And God, that movie fucking sucks.
They were trying. It's just that dialogue was obviously not written by a native English speaker. But anyway,
we have to get out of this house.
Instead of watching The Haunting, just go watch Sweet Home. It's so much better.
Yeah, and then watch Haunting of Hill House because it's fucking phenomenal.
And for anyone that does want to watch Sweet Home, the only way to watch it is on YouTube. So it is on YouTube.
Yeah, so I think at this point, it's probably not going to go away being a early, it's 89 horror film from Japan. I don't know if nobody cares. Yeah, I don't know if the copyright system's really going to. Well, it was made by Toho, but
they're very tightly locked on the rights to it. They don't want to do any re-releases or anything. So don't hold your breath for a Criterion release is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, just watch it. If you care, watch it on YouTube. I don't
know. I would say I don't know if it deserves it, but I did. There were some things the movie did that I was like, that's really interesting. I was not expecting suddenly female protagonists to show up.
Those practical effects are actually done by the same dude who worked on Evil Dead. So that
makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's worth watching just for that alone.
Yeah.
But
I did like how much the mansion changes as you're exploring the mansion, as you're trying to. I mean, the whole thing is you're trying because once you go inside, I don't think we said this. A bunch of rocks fall down, and then the ghost comes and says you're all going to die, and you can't go out the way you came in because there's a dog outside and you can't open the door.
Sound familiar?
That's a big thing from a Haunting influence as well, because in The Haunting, a lot of this is done at varying levels of effectiveness in all the remakes, but in The Haunting, the house will actually change its architecture while people are in it.
Yeah, it doesn't do it in this game. Nothing changes. I mean,
like floors fall out and like you'll like there at some point you walk into there are rooms like in the basement you walk into and like you go through the door and then there's no floor and you just fall in a sand pit.
Oh God, that I want to say you can die there really. Like I was watching my little guy go in circles and circles and circles, and he got very close to going straight down that hole, and he wasn't coming back. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you can absolutely fall down a sand pit and then get cut in half.
Yeah, it's directly like Resident Evil in every way. There's traps everywhere. I mean, everything is trying to kill you. Everything.
It's weird. It's super effective as a survival horror game, and it's also really effective as just like an RPG.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I like going into it when the first battle started showing. I was like, this is a really weird way to do horror, and
it works,
by the end of it, I was like, I ended up having a lot of fun doing that. I usually in a lot of games, if there wasn't writing in this game, but in a lot of games, if I'm enjoying some aspect of it and I get thrown into a battle, I'm like, all right, let's just get this battle over with so that I can enjoy like the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if we said they're there to film a documentary while they go inside the house.
Yes. Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, they're filming the documentary to find the lost frescoes of Mamiya.
So
which are again apparently all the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly the same. But that's part of the game too, is that when you're going around, and for anyone who's ever played Resident Evil, they'll obviously get this right off the bat. You're just going around trying to unlock as many doors as you can, because every door has something new in it that leads to a new area. And like Mike said with the tonics, just treat them as herbs. It's the same thing. They're just spread out, and there's only so many of them, so you have to be careful.
And Amy is also the master of unlocking because she picked up the key in the beginning.
Yes.
They had to give her something to do. She really didn't have much in the movie. She's a MacGuffin.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
There's a line...
like the one of the strongest characters.
Yeah. There's a line in the movie where her dad's like, you're kind of bitchy. I feel sorry for your future husband.
Yeah. You're a real bitchy woman. He says to his like vaguely late teen daughter.
Like she's supposed to be like 15, 17, but she looks 23. We don't know.
I love their relationship in the movie so much. Of like for to give we're gonna have to talk about the movie because the game doesn't have any dialogue. So or it has dialogue, but it doesn't have very much dialogue. You don't really get to know these characters, whereas the movie is like basically an hour of getting to know people. It's a 2-hour movie, and the first hour are getting to know everybody.
It's an NES game, so that's a big reason of it. I would say. Yeah,
it's to be expected. Honestly, but in the movie, like Kazuo is like he's like a film producer. His wife died a while ago, and like the daughter's kind of over it, but the dad's just holding on to it. And I love how much of an adult she is. she's like, why don't you ask out like Akiko? And he's like, you don't know anything. You're a teenager. She's like, get off your ass and ask out Akiko. Take your fucking dirty socks off. Clean this goddamn house with me.
Yeah,
and hit on that fucking lady.
That's surprisingly common for a single parent household. Sometimes the kid kind of becomes the parent, and they're just like, "No, pull yourself together, damn it."
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't be the one taking care of you.
Oh shit!
Then the dad has his hero moment. Kind of.
We all know Akiko was the real fucking hero of that movie.
Oh, yeah.
I really should have watched this movie. I feel very left out right now.
You should.
I don't know if you want me to spoil the end of it. Is very funny. It's like a horror movie with a very funny ending, I think.
Trust me, I don't give a shit.
Okay.
I'm not gonna watch it ever. You can.
Okay, spoilers for a movie that's literally 40 years old at this point.
31
years old. Kazuo, the dad, is like, Amy gets kidnapped by Lady Mamiya the ghost, who's like a shadow ghost, which is a big thing in Japanese horror. If just watch The Ring, or not The Ring, what's that other movie?
Grudge? The Grudge?
Yeah, watch The Grudge. The Grudge is like, Japanese water ghost, controls shadows, that kind of ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And kidnaps Emmy because she's like a child, even though really everyone's a child, so I don't know why Emmy was picked out of the crowd. Everyone has been a child at some point. She's like, you are now my child. I'm going to burn you and give you to my son as a gift. Japanese horror, everybody. And Kazuo, the dad's like, I'm gonna go save my daughter. Stay here. Runs in the house and like immediately disappears. And then Akiko's like, I guess I'm the hero now. Goes in, pretends to be the mom, defeats the ghost, like returns her baby to her, saves the daughter. And they're like, she's like, I'm sorry. I guess your dad's just dead. And as they're walking away, if the camera goes back in the house and a fucking like wall breaks down and the dad falls out of a cupboard and is like, I guess I survived. So hapless. He's such a hapless character. I love him.
Yep.
Like the wall falls down and he's like holding onto this little amulet. He's like torn all up to hell.
Yeah, this all started too because the guy who runs the camera for the documentary kicked over some rocks on a grave.
Taro, fucking idiot.
Yeah, that's how it all starts.
I immediately make you hate that guy. It's the Blair Witch beginning where they go into the woods and they start snapping all the shit in the trees. It's like, don't do that. Like, I know you don't know that you're in a horror movie, but come on.
You know, in regards to the story, there's another Resident Evil similarity, because you mentioned, we take pictures of these frescoes. Every time we take pictures of them, it reveals like secret messages. And it's basically kind of like reading files, talking about the past and what happened at the mansion.
Yeah.
Which
I actually really liked how they handled that.
There's also like bodies around that you can talk to too that are just there. They're just sitting there like in a corner, blood smeared on the wall. And they'll just give you like a little hint, like, yeah, I died because of such and such. And that's it.
That stuff's great. Finding the diary notes of like other people who have been stuck in the house. It's like there's one, you find a skeleton in a corner and you go around the hallway and there's a blood note on the wall that says like, oh, so-and-so, I left a rope for you. You're going to need it. And when you find the skeleton, it's like clearly he died because he didn't have a rope.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's fun.
Which I need to make a clarification because I always got annoyed with people like I don't know why this is the case, but people cite BioShock as starting the trend of telling your story through notes. And I always got annoyed with people because I was like, no, Resident Evil did that like in the 90s. Like that was Resident Evil's thing of telling the story of the game through notes. It turns out Sweet Home did it first.
Resident Evil, Silent Hill.
Yeah. But point being, it wasn't fucking BioShock, you people. But
BioShock's a way later game.
Yeah, 2007.
Yeah.
I always got so annoyed when people were like, oh yeah, BioShock started that. Like, no, it didn't.
Yeah.
And one thing we hadn't touched on, we mentioned earlier about Worm, but they do a good job of constantly kind of changing the amount of enemies that when you get in the random battles, you fight a weird variety of enemies.
Yeah.
A weird wide variety, I should say. Zombies, night, a man that turns around has a skull.
Yeah, there's one called the Madman that like has pussing bubbles on him. Yeah, and that's literally how he hurts you. He just shoots pus on you.
My favorite is man.
Man.
Whenever an enemy pops up, it says the name of the enemy with an exclamation mark, and it'll be like grave, ghoul, hallway of worms, and then one is just skull. One is just man. It's like wait, why are we killing this dude? It's just a guy. And then he turns around and he's got the Terminator face.
Yep. There's actually like this game is supposed to be horror, but there's actually a part where it totally broke me and I just burst out laughing.
There's some really funny stuff.
You have to go dig up the baby at the grave site. And
I thought that's what made you burst out laughing.
No,
dead babies.
Because you just start digging and it's like, I can't do it. And then you have to pray, and then it says after you're done praying, you're now digging furiously.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
Which I don't know if that scene was cut out of the movie, but in the movie it's equally weird. Where a woman is just like
pray before you grave rob? What the fuck?
Yeah. Well, you gotta like you just gotta build up the karma before you get rid of it. It's like how in Fallout, like you do a good deed so you can go steal all the ammo out of the back shop.
Just a simple prayer, dear St. Jude, patron saint of lost causes, please give me the power to crush this bitch. Thank you.
You killed my child. No. I also donated a ton of water to this dude outside the city. Oh, okay. I guess we're even.
I know what you're talking about. I remember doing that.
Here's 30 bottles of water. I gotta go rob the fucking casino. Yeah, it's really funny. Just so much of this game is it's like just the elements of wacky horror. I feel like is so much of the Resident Evil 5 in there. I get what they were going for, but this is like a little wrong in the best way.
Mm-hmm.
The Resident Evil borrowed so much from this game, they actually had to cut some of their references back. Like the skeleton with the bloody message originally in like Resident Evil, you were supposed to find bloody messages written on the wall from George Trevor.
That's right. And the big giant rocks that chase after you, just like in Resident Evil, if you set them off. Yeah.
I thought those were bushes for the longest time, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
Topiary, Stephen King reference. Run!
It's the Tommy knockers. Oh
no!
Every game needs a fucking like Langolier to show up. How scary would that be?
God!
I understand that the Langoliers is a very cheesy movie, but the concept of the Langoliers terrifies me to my core.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of something that comes and eats away at the world until there's nothing left, like that is terrifying.
I'm surprised there hasn't been like a fucking Blumhouse remake of that yet. Like, I feel like with today's CG, it would actually be a possibility of being taken seriously.
It's I don't know. The Langoliers to me is like a deeply terrifying movie and concept, and the novellas are like so scary.
Like the concept of them in that movie even is terrifying until you see them. Like it's terrifying. Yeah.
When they just like walk. I think the closest we've gotten is oh god, what was that show? Russian Doll, where the chick keeps going like back in time and stuff starts disappearing, like stuff gets lost in time. That was like that freaked me out.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are just people that aren't in her life anymore, and like the universe is trying to correct itself. And it was like, who are you talking about? No, that person's never existed. It's like, like I hate that. I hate thinking about that.
Shit.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds pretty fucked up.
That's creepy as fuck.
Yeah, but something else this game stole. I guess it created it from Resident Evil was the QuickTime events.
Yeah. I don't know. Technically, you are correct.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the first game with QuickTime events. I don't know.
I
possibly
would imagine so. I can't think of any game before this that would have them.
Yeah.
Were they really quick time events? You just pick left or right and then something happens.
I mean, that's kind of a quick time event.
Yeah, you got to press it before it hits you.
It is like the most base level of it. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you could credit that as the first quick time event in the gaming.
It's
for an NES, it's a pretty good quick time event, though. I mean, considering the year it came out,
some of them are a little goofy. Like when you see like the chair shaking, and it doesn't give you context of the fact that it's floating. It's just a chair like shaking on the screen. It's like, what's going on? It's like left, right, duck, pray. Pray.
You stubbed your toe, -5 damage.
But the dagger animation was really good. Like it's just a dagger like flying through the air. I mean, it's not like a very strong animation. It's just a dagger on the screen shaking back and forth, but it gives the effect of it flying at you. And I was like, it was actually genuinely like tense.
Yeah, it's like all the good NES games with any good cutscenes, you admire those, but this game actually beats all those in animation, like 100%.
Yeah.
Do you guys know this game actually has death cutscenes for everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, kind of. It has two.
Yeah.
It has one for the guys and one for the gals. But they're both really
I never saw
good.
that. I didn't let anybody die.
I let somebody die just to see what happened. They didn't reload it.
Which leads to the next thing that the Resident Evil borrowed. This game has multiple endings.
Oh yes.
Again, kind of, but it's base level, but you have to forgive that because it is like one of the first.
Technically there's like there's three variants of an ending, and then like in the middle it really depends on the number of survivors. There's the quote unquote happy ending with the thriller twist at the end.
Yeah.
And then there's like three endings in between where it's like, oh, everyone moved on with their lives, but we lost one person, we lost two people, we lost three, only one person left. But we did, and then like if there's only one survivor from the incident, they like build a memorial. Like they rebuild the Tower of Stones, the skull on top as a memorial to Lady Mamiya and her husband and everyone who died.
Yeah, I liked that ending a lot, but I did not feel good about letting 4 people die to get it.
Yeah,
like it's rare in a game where the bad ending ends up being like
the
my
happier
favorite
one.
Ending. Yeah. Like there are a few games that do that. Stalker is one of those where if you get the bad endings in Stalker, they're all really interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the good ending is like, it's okay.
So are you saying, Stu, that in Resident Evil you give Barry back his Magnum and you trust him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why wouldn't you trust Barry? He's Barry. Oh.
Look, I'm just gonna say this. I think Jill's actually happy in her worst ending. Takes off her hat. She's like, finally, I need a fucking shower. This is great. All this helicopter, all to myself.
I always like there's some bad endings in technically the first ending of the ending of the first Metro game. The bad ending is the canon one, and I think it's more emotionally resonant than the good ending. Some good endings in games are like, and everyone lived happily ever after. It's like, that's too clean. I don't like that. Mm-hmm. Like, to give a modern example, I might get shit for this. I hated the good ending of Outer Worlds, the game that just came out. Like the whole game is like corporate bureaucracy and all this like evil, greedy nature. And the good ending of that game is like really clean and happy. Like that doesn't really fit the theme here.
It's like the studio forced happy ending of Blade Runner.
Yeah. And we left the town, and I didn't care if she was an android.
And she didn't expire. We got married and had 2.5 kids.
I love how I love that version of Blade Runner better because of how annoyed Harrison Ford is with every fucking voiceover. I went down to the Chinese shop. I got Chinese every night. I guess I like Chinese food. It's just like you can hear him like really tense. It's just like, I fucking hate the studio for doing this, but they're paying me, so I guess I have to be here.
It's like he was in that room just like shaking his head and throwing his arms up in the air the whole time. Well, I guess I did this next, but I really didn't like it. I like to imagine he wouldn't even get out of bed. Like he was just laying in bed and a guy showed over the microphone and was like, "Here's your line, sir."
Just fuck off. It's 4 a.m.
I'm trying to sleep.
He confessed years later he purposely did stilted readings because he that was his way of protesting it.
Yeah, it's great. Like,
don't sign the contract.
The story of Blade Runner is so much better than Blade Runner. Which is saying something, I think. I like Blade Runner, but the story behind it is just like, how did this movie get made? Everyone was so upset all the time.
It's a Hollywood miracle.
So speaking of Sweet Home, one thing I do want to say is we have kind of went over that there are a lot of traps. Like the traps were interesting. Like you go in different rooms where you walk so far and all of a sudden like the room will flood in one area and push you out. Boulders come chasing after you. Fire will start happening. You got to run through fire, and all this stuff will hurt you. Like there's a part where you're outside in a swamp, wander around. You have to get gloves to pick up an item, and then you can. It's just they did a very good job where I wouldn't understand nothing if I wouldn't have been watching somebody play it. But it is very interesting.
I felt like all the items, for the most part, there were a couple.
I'm not good at stuff like that.
There were a couple very like Resident Evil moments of, okay, I don't understand why I need this item, but clearly it's something I have to pick up. But for the most part, I felt like you come across a bunch of vines outside. That's why you need the gloves. And it's like, oh, I couldn't possibly move this without gloves. It's like, oh, okay, I remember seeing those earlier. I'll go pick them up. Like, there's a lot of stuff that made sense to me. There's glasses, obviously. Vacuum.
Obviously, we're all walking around this mansion barefoot, so that's why we need to waste time vacuuming up this glass instead of just sweeping it aside.
Well, the game makes special note to point out that one character is wearing boots because there's that one sticky floor section where only the character with boots can continue and pull other people out.
Yeah, that's one of the things we should also talk about. The only annoying part of this game that I had a big problem with is that sometimes you can get poisoned. You can get scared, you can get stuck on a floor, and you literally have to exit the party, cure that person, enter the party again, and hopefully you make it through. Otherwise, you have to do it all over again.
I spent a lot of time sending Akiko back and forth because she has her special item is like, it's called like it's a health kit, but for whatever reason they wrote it in my game as plus kit. I think it meant like cross kit, like first aid kit, but I kept reading it as, oh, Akiko has the plus kit.
She does CrossFit.
She has CrossFit, which means she can cure sticky floors and curses because that's what first aid kits do.
I'm gonna pray your wounds away.
Please, no one go to a CrossFit gym and ask for this training, please.
Yeah, it's weird that the first aid kit cured curses and not praying, which is a power you have that is like ultra effective against certain enemies.
I think it's weird that the first aid kit doesn't like heal your wounds.
Yeah, the first aid kit really only heals status effect. It's odd. I guess in real life, first aid kits kind of do that as well. By first aid, that would kind of imply the first aid kits also have like splints and stuff in them, which they don't. Like you imagine like like you cut your hand really bad and you're like, oh shit, like somebody find a first aid kit, and they come and bring it back and it's got like a full cast and a crucifix in it. Like,
God damn it, Akiko, that's not what I needed.
You'll thank me one day. One day this whole mall will be cursed. And you'll go,
oh,
where's
I found a
Akiko
bandage. Oh, thank God. It's a little Hello Kitty bandage. God damn it, Emmy. That
I guess that like Resident Evil is the kind of spiritual successor to this game, but I was shocked that there wasn't a sequel. So a sequel to either this or the movie.
The movie didn't get a sequel because unfortunately there was a lot of trouble behind the scenes. One of the producers was possibly murdered by the Yakuza. So it was yeah.
Japan was hard, people.
It was reported as a suicide initially, and then like 20 years later, someone from the Yakuza was like, yeah, no, basically I put a gun to his head. It's like, you can either jump and maybe survive from this building, or I shoot you. And he jumped and he didn't survive. So
that happens a surprising amount in India with their, I don't know if I should say more than that. India has a very bad organized crime problem, and sometimes like things will happen that don't make sense, and everyone's just like, I guess the Indian mob was involved.
People are always jumping off buildings randomly.
But I do think that is part of the reason why it's never gotten the DVD release, and Toho is just kind of quietly like, do what you want with it. We're not doing anything else.
Why can't the Yakuza be like the Yakuza games where they all just love children and want the world to succeed? The two faces of the Yakuza.
All right. So
I'm gonna have to like look into this now because I fucking love.
So
Yakuza
besides
stories.
traps, one thing that was very interesting about this game that really grabbed me as I kept playing, you'll find out that almost the mansion is very like everything will link together after a while as you progress. And you get different keys. I like that. Like one of the last rooms you're in connects to one of the first rooms you were in by a door you could never open or you didn't even know existed. And I thought that was cool. Like, there's some really cool puzzles in this game. We're not going into them really because we're talking. There's a lot, but
like so many. Yeah,
there's a ton. One I want to mention.
It's not a super long game, but there's a puzzle like almost every like half hour to 45.
I'd say more than that
of some kind.
I mean,
there's either a puzzle that you come across or you are currently working on like a backlog of puzzles.
Well, and the other part is you really don't know because there's some of them are super cryptic, but it's all interconnected. So like you'll go through a door that you finally get to unlock and you don't realize it, but it leads you back to like the main hall or something. Yeah. It's like Resident Evil. You pass so many doors and then later on you just come out of one at the other end.
And there's also like a lot of items that are used for very specific things. And you're like, okay, I will like the mallet. At some point you get a mallet in this game and you use it to like bash some statues. I'm like, okay, I won't need this anymore. And so you realize that, you actually have to use the mallet to like bash open these like glass panes and reveal new doorways.
Mm-hmm. Like another one too is the cursed blood with the pail.
Oh yeah.
Like, you come across like that woman statue with the water coming out and it says, do you want to drink from it? And of course you say yes. And then you hear Lady Mamiya's voice. And she's like, you're all doomed.
Well, you read Lady Mamiya's voice.
Yeah. Well, I heard it in my head.
In your head, was she like, you're all doomed? It was Harrison Ford.
You're all doomed.
Kid. Doomed.
I don't sound like that.
But yeah, you drink it and then the water turns to blood and you have to have a pail with you to get the blood to throw on a statue to go out to the courtyard.
Yeah. It's very Resident Evil 2 with like the weirdness of the puzzles.
You know, I have to wonder because I'm not well versed in Japanese superstition, but I do wonder some of this stuff. It's like culturally, it would make more sense over there than over here.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know a little bit about it. I know a little bit about like I know there's Japanese water ghosts, which Japan as a like culture is kind of odd because it has all of their demons and folk religions built into a culture that's also like half Christian now and also like more secular. It's a very odd organization. So it's like the same as when like typically in like Western, I hate talking about this. Typically in Western culture, like when a demon shows up in a movie, it's just a demon. It's not a very specific kind of one. Whereas in Japan, you have very specific kinds of demons. Like you have like I think they're yokai. That's what they are. Where it's like there's a bunch of different kinds of yokai that exist and do very specific things. Like if you watch Princess Mononoke, all the like spirits and demons in that movie are all based on very real and very different yokai in Japanese culture.
Yeah. That's the thing I'm kind of curious about with this game. If like some of the solutions, like throwing blood on a statue or whatever, like is kind of tied to the superstitions. Because I know again in Silent Hill there were some things where it's like in here, you know, over here it wouldn't make much sense, but over in Japan it's like, of course that's why, you know, the floor randomly appearing on the elevator button, stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of Japanese movies that like I've watched them like I don't understand this, but then if I look into the backstory of them, like I wish I knew this ahead of time because then I feel like I'd really enjoy this movie.
Yeah, Japan has weird superstitions, and we just got Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's true. We probably have more different kinds of aliens than Japan has. But like The Grudge is a great example. Like that's a Japanese water ghost, and I did not know that going into that movie. I was just like, oh, that's a creep. Like the original Ju-on, I was like, oh, that's a creepy movie. And then learning about that spirit, I was like, okay, I go back and I can watch this movie and understand it more, and then I'll enjoy. Like I enjoyed the sequels. I feel like more because of that. It's it requires some research, but it's not. It's good. it's just a lot. Like there's thousands of different kinds of yokai, so
Right.
it's hard to jump into that world.
The other thing in regards to the game, though, I feel it also just kind of ties to the nature of video games, the way they were back then. Because honestly, you know, back in the 80s and the 90s, like a lot of adventure games, you'd have to do outlandish, out of the box, crazy shit to move the plot forward that you wouldn't normally think to do. And then you're like, oh, yes, of course, I have to pop this balloon and rub that clown's belly for some fucking reason.
I don't know if we mentioned this in the Parasite Eve episode, but there's actually a Parasite Eve movie.
Yeah, based on the book.
Yeah, that's based on
the game is a
kind
sequel
of
to.
Yeah, it's based on a kind of yokai as well. Also, made by or distributed by Toho as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that Toho is like their Warner Brothers to do, or more like their Disney, I guess now.
One of the interesting things though about this game too was very rare back in the day is that it actually allowed you to save your game. It actually had a chip in it to save, which from what I've heard, some of those batteries still work even today, like in old Final Fantasy games or something in the cartridges.
I've done some reading on that. It's kind of interesting. Like I think we've gotten to a point where every Tamagotchi is now officially dead. Like all the original Tamagotchis, because the batteries in their cartridges have almost all, like they were not built to have lasted as long as this, and so they've all failed. So we can say like at a certain date, there's a certain date and time where like, okay, this is the last day that a Tamagotchi is expected to live.
Well, Steve is still alive in my heart, Stu.
Okay. Yeah, I always find that stuff really interesting though, and then when you start talking about like the fact that cartridges will fail at some point, that's when I'm like, okay, yeah, we need to start like putting all these games online just to preserve them.
Yeah, I agree.
We don't want to end up with like the fucking like Hollywood fires that just like burn down half of fucking. There's a very depressing thing that happened at some point in LA where a movie studio burned down. And that was where it was like a warehouse, and that's where they kept the majority of like movie reels.
Wasn't that Universal Studios?
I think so. But I just know like a lot of silent films were lost. A lot of movies were just lost to time.
Movies, television, a lot of original prints. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a running list of lost films that people keep that are just gone, and like no one, it's really depressing when it's like, okay, yeah, this movie's gone and no one will ever see it again. We have no evidence that it existed.
There's whole sites dedicated to lost media, and it's funny too because with the movie there actually is lost media for Sweet Home, because the home release is like, I want to say 40% reshot. Like it's it's not the theatrical cut that released in Japan.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
There have been
The only movie I can think of recently that's like that would be Suicide Squad.
what? I
There's
don't think I've heard of
I'm
that.
missing a joke.
There's a better movie buried somewhere in there.
I missed the joke, I assume.
It's buried about 20,000 feet deep. There's actually a Batman movie that's lost. There was like a Filipino Batman movie called Batman Fights Dracula that's gone. And for those like, just to give everyone context, for like that was like a late 60s movie. Like that, this is like, it still happens occasionally. It's very rare today, but it's still like back when you shot things on film. If the film reels burned, then that's it. We don't have a digital copy of this. It's gone.
Oh, a couple things we hadn't mentioned yet before we start wrapping up the game is one thing that pissed me off constantly in this game is there's a thing called will-o-wisps that will like fly, a little blue thing will fly around the screen. If it touches one of your party members, it warps them somewhere else in the mansion.
Oh, fuck those things.
And I just save and load it and be right back. But otherwise, you have to take that person and walk back to where you were, and piss me off.
I mean, like in regular survival horror, that would work to your detriment, and then like, oh, okay, now I'm by myself. Kind of like in Resident Evil 0. It sucks because of the horror, but in this game, it's just annoying.
Yeah.
Well, it's also a bit dangerous too, because any character being by themselves can easily be overwhelmed if it's, especially early on before they're maxed out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should mention that too. Mm-hmm.
Easier.
Yeah.
Wasn't not to tangent off a tangent, but wasn't a bunch of music just lost not too long ago? A bunch of like record copies of music were just lost. I want to say like a big artist, right? What was it? MySpace?
There was a MySpace thing where a bunch of music got lost from MySpace or something.
Like really big artists have lost their music. I want to say like some. I don't know if it was Taylor Swift. Some very big pop star has like lost a couple of her original tracks. I mean, they're still out there, but they lost like the original recordings of them, which sucks.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm Googling to see what.
I think you're right. I think it was like
she lost rights.
Music.
She lost rights to some or something. I don't know. I don't want to read farther than just the bottom, the first line.
Yeah,
So,
it was like it was a news story like 4 or 5 years ago, and people were like, "Oh, that sucks." And like it's just recent. I would say I just saw a news story about it like a week ago, where they were like, "Okay, this might have been worse than we said." Like apparently the data that was lost it's just now coming out, like the amount of data that was lost, and people will probably go to jail over it. Probably should go to jail over it.
All I want to know is, was Keith Sweat's Nobody saved?
I think
We can't use that.
I forgot about
Still
that.
out
What episode was that?
Yeah.
I remember saying it, but I can't remember what episode we were talking about.
I just got fucking New Order out of my head from the last episode.
I think that was Daredevil.
Yeah, you're right, Daredevil. It just got released. Okay. One thing we hadn't brought up yet that we should bring up before we wrap up this game, because we've said most things about it, is there are a few survivors that are locked inside the house. Like there's a couple of maids. There's some weirdo guy who sacrifices himself at one point to save
the artist.
Yamamura,
Yeah, Yamamura.
I didn't give a shit. I was just trying to beat the game.
Oh wow, because
He's the guy who painted all the frescoes.
yeah, he's a pretty important guy.
I didn't care.
It's it's heavily implied that he and the artist are like he's like the artist who like ran away from the house, and in the movie he like runs a gas station, and it's like revealed that like he might be Mamiya. He's definitely got some connection to the house.
He's got the coolest line in the movie too, because they try to say something about like, oh, the shadows are attacking us. He's like, well, we'll just turn on a bunch of lights so we get rid of the shadows. And he's like, you fool, that'll just create more shadows. He's like, even in a closed pond, there's shadows, you imbecile.
That is about 5 minutes before he starts drunkenly singing and everyone starts laughing. The tone of that movie is all over the place, and I love it.
And then he kills himself and commits suicide, basically.
Yeah. And his death in the game is exactly like his death in the movie. It's great. It's such a good effect.
Yep.
He like slowly melts into a skeleton, and like that part of the game, I was like, oh shit, like this dude's like, he showed up and I was like, oh, I bet this dude's dead. I bet this is like a ghost. And then he dies and I'm like, oh my God, he wasn't a ghost. I mean, I guess he might be now, but holy shit.
And yes, I mean, that plays a part in it. And also you have to get these 4 items you're told throughout near the end of the game to collect a diary, a tool, a photo. And I don't remember the fourth one.
Coffin.
Yeah, coffin.
The dead baby.
Coffin.
Yeah, and the final area, as you've been going throughout this whole mansion, you go into a flesh-looking dungeon or area that's a maze full of will-o-wisps that can suck you away and pissed me off a lot. And you have to fight like evil clones of yourself.
Yes, you have to fight your whole party. I was really terrified during that part because I was like, I'm gonna pray because I don't know if attacking it with weapons will just kill them. I don't trust this game to not be you just killed your party member.
Not like, but I mean, it let me. That's how I found out Asuka was a girl and not a guy. I'm like, oh, I didn't know until then.
Yeah, that's the first time you see your party members.
Yeah, I was like, that's not what my Asuka looks like in my head. I'm like, oh, okay.
Asuka. I know I recognize that it's very stupid that I'm the one correcting you in this because I will purposely mispronounce that name to piss off people.
I just realized that Akiko, the medical kit person, was a woman the entire time.
Yeah, she's like a nurse. And it's like, why is she just? I get that she's like the medicine person, but why is she dressed like a full nurse?
I was cracking jokes about that yesterday.
Yeah,
she looks like Nurse Joy.
I do have to say producer, but
yeah,
the final fight was cool. Like where you have to, after you get them fighting all your shadow clones, and then you get to the final fight, you have to like wait for certain dialogue, and then you use certain items in it. Use the items that we mentioned in order to progress to and kill her eventually.
Yeah. And that, to the game's credit, that could have been very dumb and very annoying, but they drill it into your head, the order. They like when you find a diary earlier and it gives you the order. And when it did that, I wrote it down to make sure because this is a Resident Evil game, basically. Mm-hmm. So I wrote down the order they tell you. And they even say use I think it's like use the light and then the diary and then the candle and then the coffin. And that's very important. They say that's very important. It's like, okay, I better write this down because they're not going to do it again. But then as you're going up to that fight, like the ghost of Yamamura is talking to you at certain sections. And he says the things in the order that you need to use them again. Like right before the fight. I'm like, oh, they know what they're doing. They're really making sure you understand this fight and how it's supposed to go.
And it's a cool fight. Like it's a cool final boss fight where you're fighting her and she looks like a ghost with a dress. And then she transforms into like a spider monster.
Yeah. Because in the movie, all those babies she killed are like on her back, like poking out of her, like Freddy Krueger. They're trying to come out of her and escape.
It is an obscenely weird and good effect. It is so. It's another thing in the movie that could have been really stupid, but because like the effect artist put so much time into it, it's like, oh wow, that like actually it's weird, but like it looks really good.
It's fucked up, but it was cool. Like the whole ending, like I had all of my characters survive because I was using save states, but they do a good job with it. Like as you fight her and then as you use the items, you beat her. Like the only reason, like the guy kept telling me level up. And it was only because you just need the HP to tank all the hits in the final fight. Because in this game, enemies just do what they do. I felt like with damage, it didn't feel like it was very based on like, oh, well, you're level 20, so they're going to do less damage. No, they still hit 100 damage, even though you only have 2,000 health. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
I didn't like that because I'm used to RPGs where, okay, I'm stronger, so I'm going to take less damage. Not, you're still going to take the same amount of damage. It just, I didn't like that.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I would say that was an issue with the game. It was just a different way of doing it where it seemed like you were running into a lot more enemies at the end. And that's kind of how they were like that's how they were like ramping up the difficulty.
Yeah,
it's not really a JRPG. Like it looks like one, it feels like one, but it's not really one.
Yeah, well, it's early.
Well, Dragon Warrior I think came out before this, around this time. I didn't look this up before I bought it out this bullshit, but
still
somewhere around this
time. But yeah, I'm not against that gameplay mechanic. I'm not against the difficulty as more enemies rather than stronger enemies.
I think I either after a while.
I don't know. It depends on like what mood I'm in for some games. Some games do that and some games don't. It's always like I like harder enemies, but then I'll play something like Borderlands. I'm like, do guns not just do anything anymore? Like, is that where we're at?
Yeah.
And so I tend not to like that either.
I don't feel like the leveling in this game even really played a big role to begin with because you're not sitting there paying attention to it. And every time you get to a new level, the enemies do get harder, but you eventually just 10 rounds you overcome them and just
you
level up.
Over level them so fast.
The only time it really mattered was near the end, which we haven't mentioned yet. There's a door you can't go into unless you're level 16. Or level 16.
That's what I said. You had that's the part where you have to grind a little bit if you're not level 16.
Yeah.
But
grinding is literally just running in circles until an enemy fights you.
Yeah, it's like 30 minutes, I want to say, to get up there.
It's not very long.
Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, especially not when you put turbo on. It went really fast for me.
Yeah. I like how quick the fights can go, because you can just press the button to select attack almost before the screen.
You can buffer it, I guess.
So it's just in the middle of a battle, you'd be like, attack, 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 attack.
Yeah, but when you're starting out, especially when things are kind of slowed down, there is some pretty cool strategies and stuff. Like the worms were annoying when I was first starting, and it turns out you can just use a candle and it does massive damage on them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
cool. You can use other items, and they affect. There's a file that mentions it, but it's flashlight at certain enemies, it'll hurt them. Flames hurt other enemies.
That's I wish. Oh, God, I don't want to say it's a fault of the game, because if I just played this game longer, if I played this game more, I would get a sense of what does what to what enemy. Some items are oh yeah, if you have this will kill things instantly. It's not set in the game, and I kind of like that, because it the idea is oh, you're gonna replay it and you're gonna experiment with it. So had I played that longer, I think I would have really liked that.
I'll never
I like non-weapons.
Sorry.
I like when non-weapons have damaging effects on enemies in games, when things are things you don't expect can hurt things.
Yeah, kind of like a Phoenix Down killing a undead enemy or something.
Yeah, I love that. Any game that healing actually hurts the undead, I love that stuff.
Or suplexing a train.
Or suplexing a train, yeah. Or punching a boulder to death. It's great.
All you really need are thoughts and prayers, though. Let's not
All right.
Thoughts and prayers, and you can survive inside a volcano.
As I was saying before, the whole ending of this game, the final, after you beat the final boss, they finally escape the mansion. I thought that was really cool too, the way they did that. Mm-hmm. And because the whole time, reminding me Resident Evil again, you're all trying to escape. For me, everybody escaped with me because I didn't let anyone die. And I didn't really catch this in the ending until I was reading later as we're doing this recording. As they're all talking and they're doing the documentary, the guy they're talking to turns to look at them, and his face is like the man that you see earlier in the game that you would fight. It turns out it's supposed to be that the nightmare hasn't ended for them. They haven't really escaped.
Yeah.
So I thought that was it ends on a cliffhanger.
Classic
the thriller.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have that's it. I understand that people will hate that in a horror movie, but sometimes you'll watch a horror movie and that sequel bait won't be there, and it feels like they didn't give you something that you were promised. That's such a staple of the series.
It didn't bother me.
I'll watch until the credits and the shark isn't coming back. Okay, this is just one movie. All right.
They just beat the crap out of a bunch of those things. A bunch of monsters in a mansion. They got this. They're fuck again. All right, fine. Let's do this.
And I don't remember.
It's one of those things. Nobody likes it. No one likes seeing it, but it's just so expected. You get to the end of a fucking Nightmare on Elm Street movie, you expect to see Freddy's hand claw out of the ground.
I still prefer the happy ending to the original movie, but that's besides the point.
I want to see a remake of this movie where they enter, the documentarians enter, and there's all these zombies and monsters and everything. But then it turns out the zombies are running away and they just start beating the shit out of everything.
Oh, that was the ending.
That's a clever idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Astrid is beating the fuck out of something with her dirt devil. Just die.
A horror movie where the humans are the bad guys without realizing it. That's awesome. That's a really good idea. I totally watch that.
It's trespassers, get the fuck out of my house.
All right.
Haunting a Hill House kind of does some stuff like that, where you realize the ghosts have motives.
Can you imagine a bunch of zombies save the worms?
Get out of it.
Get out of here.
Oh God, they're burning them with candles.
No. Don't worry, guys. Man is here.
Man is here.
Man, turn around. They're right behind you.
Should we go on to questions, comments, or memories?
Sure. Did you get many for this?
Yes. I did not expect any Like, I posted this in 5 different groups. I'm like, no one's going to respond to me. No one played this shit. And I was very surprised a lot of people did. I had a lot of people comment with stuff to say.
That's awesome.
I was not expecting that. A lot of people have, I wouldn't say played this game, but know of it. So, okay, let's go. And from the Classic Gamers Guild group, one first comment I want to read from Joseph Khaled said, you need to see the movie. Well, I agree. I should have saw this movie before I did this episode because the other guys watched it. Okay. I thought, oh, he'll just be Stefan. And turns out Stefan, Stu, Jesse. I'm like, oh, well, I feel a little left out now.
Yeah. I watched it twice, actually.
Yeah. I watched it about 2 hours ago.
I hate horror movies, so it'd be hard.
It's well, it's Japanese horror, so it's not really horror so much as it is what the fuck's happening. That's weird.
Yep.
It feels kind of like an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, except like PG-13 or.
Except when that shadow shows up, that was like legitimately scary.
I would say I'll watch it, but I know I won't, so I won't even lie.
There's a part where like a shadow like takes over a wall, and it has like the form of a person, and it like starts like kind of grabbing people. It's like legitimately a legitimately scary visual.
And you know, like that's straight up practical effects, but it just works so well.
Yeah, I want to know how they got the shadow so dark for that scene.
Yeah,
they must have done some like film treatment or something because it's not. It's like an unnatural darkness.
As you keep talking about the movie, this one from Bradley Comstock, based on a wonderfully bizarre movie. This seemed perfect. I'll throw that in right there. Oh, from Chris Clark that it's age awkwardly. It's certainly playable. It's not amazing by any means. You know, I'm not so. I'll get that later, but my opinion changes about this game. I hated it the first hour. Fucking hated it. But
you remember the enemy in the game, Mike, where like it's a half guy crawling at you?
Yeah, corpse or zombie.
Yeah, like that's in the movie as well. That's another callback to the movie. There's a lot that you missed, probably.
And from Christopher Otis, he said, I always wanted to play it. Well, you can. My buddy Vim has it online.
It's out there.
Yeah, I'm just going with that. Right?
Not legitimately, but it's out there.
Google.
The Skull Memorial too is like it's an exact replica. Like
because you can't legally get this game because it doesn't, and they're never going to port it here. So
no, this game is I think it's fair to say that this game and the movie are like, it's for all intents and purposes they are just dead. At least for the foreseeable future. So I have no qualms about telling people to just download this shit.
Yeah. Plus we got Resident Evil.
Yeah. There's no to watch or experience this.
Oh, you'll like this one from Russell Brown. Said I like it. There's another horror game on SNES called The Place No Ma that's similar with a very Lovecraft feel to it. And I looked that up after I saw that comment. That something looks right up our alley for this show eventually.
A Place No Ma?
Called The Place No Ma. LAPLACE space no space ma.
I like how you spelled the words that made sense. I don't know what ma means. Like M-A?
M-A. From Eric Jameson said the permadeath aspect was unique, especially given its time of release. I enjoyed it, although there's a bit of grinding. Not much, though. You always get the initiative in battle, so that compensates for the limited healing supplies. I disagree. I recommend it for something different.
Yeah, La Place No Ma looks exactly like this game.
Yeah. And
I'm just gonna say this right now in regards to grinding. All right, after having to grind for Parasite Eve to get to level 100, the grinding in this game ain't shit. All right,
you did not have to do that.
You do if you were doing the Chrysler building.
Like, as someone that's recently started playing a lot of JRPGs, the grinding in this game is fucking nothing. All right.
Yeah.
Wait till we play Golden Sun Lost Age, which we have to do because people keep asking for it on this show.
As someone that is trying to replay fucking Final Fantasy 12, like this game is grinding is fucking nothing.
Like I literally went from level 10 to 16 in 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And you max out at 20. So
whereas Final Fantasy 12, there's a part of the game where it's like, okay, for the next 50 hours, just kill enemies. It's like, what? Are you serious? Yeah, fuck you. Go do it. You need to go do this.
Playing on emulator.
Otherwise, you're gonna die.
All right. From Stefan Abbott, he said, "Is it set in Alabama?"
Yes. Yeah, it's Alabama, Japan.
Japan.
So, and I actually have some comments from the Giant Bomb.
I actually don't know where it's set because the movie is very strange with its setting. Like it starts in like a weird deserted Japanese town. Like
I think
it's definitely Japan, right? It's definitely in Japan.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. It's just one of those small towns where like somebody famous lives on the outskirts in a mansion.
But like it starts with like they're in the desert. Does Japan have Japan doesn't have any deserts, does it?
I don't think so.
I don't think Japan has a like it's such a weird opening that I was like, is Japan bigger than I thought it was?
Hey, someone who listened to us in Japan, let us know. Send me a message
how many like it starts like the beginning of like The Mummy, like that kind of like massive desert. It's got some like close shots, but you can never tell because there's sand blowing everywhere. Like everyone's wearing like sand goggles and shoes.
Oh,
like,
you're watching a movie, aren't you?
Yeah,
Just, okay. Somewhere in the Japanese barrens. I mean, it's kind of like Scooby-Doo, where they're traveling around to just random towns.
I mean, like, Star Wars, when it opens with C-3PO and R2-D2, that was just Yuma, Arizona.
Here's the thing. The movie starts in Yuma, Arizona, and that kind of desert. Mm-hmm. But then with it's implied that like they have to go get the key for the mansion. So from that same town, they travel from desert to like temperate forest. And that's implied to be in the same town. It's like, what the fuck? Is that where is this?
That forest actually does look like the Amazon. It's pretty thick. Yeah,
it's so weird. Where's all the like? Where did the sand go? What is going on? Where are they? It's so strange.
Disorienting. It works.
Yeah, but it's like you can tell it's like purposely disorienting.
Well, Jesse? Do you know if the mansion was like a real mansion or was it just something they propped up? Because we didn't mention it, but it crumbles and dies at the end.
It was something that they propped up. It was mostly sound stages and Okay. I don't know for sure about the exterior, but I'm pretty sure that was all movie.
I tried to look up where they shot, and I just couldn't find any information. There's basically nothing. Like, if you find any information about this movie, it's like really valuable because that's about all you get.
Yeah, there's a good chance no one involved in this movie knows what is spawned from it existing. Yeah.
If you told any of the actors involved, like, hey, people are talking about this movie right now, I'd be like, what the fuck? Why? Like, it's hard to tell.
Did for a car.
It's hard to tell.
Shit.
Yeah. It's hard to tell even like when exactly the movie and the game are released because they might have been released at the same time, or like some people say the game came out first, some people say the movie came out first, and I found like competing information.
The game definitely was a promotional item for the movie. I've seen trailers for the game where it's using footage from the movie, so it was.
But like you can put that in the trailer and then like I was trying to find like the exact release dates, and the closest I could find was like, okay, the movie came out like January 21st, and the movie was like 1989, like before, after, or
exactly. It's hard to say, but I want to say there's a very strong chance the movie came out first, or at the very least they were released in tandem.
I saw somebody say like I found one thing that was like they released in tandem to the point that somebody bought the game and got a ticket for the movie, because it's very odd.
Yeah, I can see it, but at the same time, there's just so much crafting put into this game, and how honestly, like aesthetically, it's very well designed. So I think it took them quite a bit of time.
That happens though. Like was it the Star Trek game? There was like a Star Trek game that came out before the movie that was based on the movie that was coming out like later that summer. Like they had to talk to the writers and be like, all right, what's the movie gonna be like so that we can make the game like that?
But worse.
I don't know. The likeness, okay. The likeness of the characters, when we get like actual detailed portraits of them, they look fairly close to the actors. So I want to say it was about neck and neck for it.
There are some people bring a game director on stage, like on the film shoot though, and be like, all right, this is what you're working with.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's just there's people out there who kind of make the assumption they're like, oh, this is the first video game movie or something. It's like because the game came first, they made the movie. It's like no, they didn't, because the actors' faces are on the game cartridges. Dumbass.
But it's made by a company that actually cares. It's not like an LJN thing. It's Capcom.
Yeah. That's what makes it even stranger. It's like it's a Capcom game and like a pretty good movie why isn't there more information on this?
Yeah.
Like what? Like someone needs to like get the original Capcom team together or something. Do like a documentary series on this movie and this game. Be like, what the fuck is going on? Tell us about tell us anything.
Team Sweet Home.
I have a question for everyone. So if this didn't spawn Resident Evil and the franchise everyone loves and mildly hates today, do you think this game would have gotten anywhere near the notoriety it has today?
I still think it'd be an obscurity just because of the lack of information about it.
I think it'd be an obscure. I don't think it would be invisible. I think it'd be an obscurity. I always say
a rare gem.
Yeah, I always say everything is someone's favorite thing. Like that's just how the world works. There are 7 billion people on the earth. Every single one of them. Yeah, I'm sure there's somebody out there, and you know who you are. Where our podcast is their favorite thing, and that's not like oh look at us. That's just how like Logan Paul is someone's favorite thing. The worst. It doesn't matter how bad something is. Somebody
Thanks for comparing us to him.
Yeah, well, he's popular.
I'll give you a good example.
With him.
I'll give you a good example. I like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. My friend, however, likes peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwiches.
Well, he's obviously the devil. But yeah, no matter how bad something is, there's always somebody who loves it. There's always someone that is their favorite thing. It just connects with them on some level. That's their favorite thing. So I don't think this game would be dead because a lot of things aren't. There's nothing that's like truly dead. I don't think it would be the same level, but I think there would be a small community talking about it.
Yeah,
it's always my logic going into anything.
I was talking with Stefan about this the other day, and I told him, I was like, I think if this was to release as like an indie game on Steam, I think it would actually do well.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also mentioned too that it would need to have it would have to brush up to today's standards a little bit. Like, I don't think it could be as hard as it is and people would give a shit. It would have to have like a difficulty setting, I think.
Well, let me throw this by you. What if Capcom, when they released, because they're doing the remake of 3 and they're also doing, I can never remember the fucking name of it. They're doing that like side thing. That's like the Resistance. Yeah. Where it's like the 4 or 5 person, like multiplayer
Left 4 Dead 3, basically.
It's Left 4 Dead. It's the Left 4 Dead versus mode, but you play as like the AI creator.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could see Capcom saying like, okay, we're doing another big remake, and we're going to also include like Sweet Home with it. Like we're doing a Sweet Home.
They should do it my way though, where like the humans are the enemies. They're the bad guys.
We're gonna do it a little differently. Yeah. Like don't remake it to 3D. Don't remake it to like look like Resident Evil 3. But just upgrade it a little bit. Keep it 2D. Upgrade the mechanics. Make things flow a little bit better. That's all I gotta do.
Mm-hmm.
I could see them coming out.
I have a few more questions to read. One from JJ Franco said, I was so young, I don't think I made it beyond the first few quarters before I hit the fuck this and played RBI baseball. I don't blame you, sir. From Andy Bolsover, he said, haven't played the game, but I seen the movie, and oh boy, it's pretty crazy. I'm noticing that based on this podcast.
I'm gonna say go outside and play baseball if you're gonna play baseball. Get some real exercise. Sorry.
Not sorry. You should be, but all right. This from the official Leisure Time group that I'm a part of. I actually had a lot. I was really surprised how many people actually knew this game and had things to say about it. I'm like, no one's gonna comment, and all of a sudden I'm like, what the fuck? So caught me off guard. From Ian Frederick, he said, I've got a copy. I like the atmosphere, but it's really difficult. I feel like I should look up some hints next time to play. Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm. One, by us explaining most of it, it'll make a lot more sense, but also watch a YouTube video, which I sent you the link for in that comment. It'll help you. Like, I would not have gotten anywhere without YouTube because I would have just given up. So, you guys like this one from Kyle Foster. He says, straight up one of the greatest video games of all time, and quite possibly the most well-aged 8-bit JRPG. Like Capcom was so far ahead of the curve, it plays fast. You can literally save anywhere. It's amazing how well aged this game is. I mean, it is interesting.
This game is interesting. It holds up a lot better.
Yeah,
it does hold up, but
it's not perfect. But like, damn, it plays pretty damn well for a game from '89.
I mean, I guess there aren't a lot of 8-bit RPGs, but Dragon Quest is pretty good. So
I mean, they're out there, but the problem is most of them suck. So they just haven't lived on.
For this one from yeah, keep going there. I was just going to say, for a game from '89, again, based off of a movie property, it's the promotional game. Like, it's really well done.
Like finding like a desk, like a 50-year-old desk, and there's only like a couple like knocks out of it. I'm like, oh wow, okay.
I will agree with them. I mean, I like Dragon Warrior more, or Dragon Quest, because that's just who I am. But this is a very unique game, and I want to say I'm glad I experienced it, but I'm not sure yet. So we'll get that. From David White. It is also from this game that we get the name. Somewhere in the game, there's a note that reads, here's the house of residing evil, which I don't think I came across that.
Yeah, some translations actually just flat out make it Resident Evil.
Yeah.
And from
Resident Evil was Japanese people writing for Canadians. This game is people who kind of speak English.
I kind of wish like the characters could like somehow their sprites would just look up at the camera as it's scrolling across.
And this from Philip Gearhart said, I love this game. The music in this game is underrated too, which we actually haven't covered yet.
Yeah, we haven't.
We've been too busy talking about the movie.
It's as equal. Well, I was gonna say it's as equally weird as the movie.
A little more fitting, though, I'd say.
Yeah. The movie has some like bizarre music in it, and there's really only like we say there's like 4 songs total in the game, maybe 3. And there's like your standard music, your battle music, and then the end screen music. And it's despite there only being like 1 song, it didn't really get to the point. Like it never annoyed me. It kind of started to fade after a while, but I was like, oh, it's pretty nice because it's just very like melodic and like kind of hypnotic, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The mural music, the fresco music, though, sounded way too much like the Godfather theme.
Yeah. Actually, the main theme of the movie was distracting me because it's this is like a theme of the month of music that is like 1 note off from other songs I know. The music in the movie sounds just like the main like island theme from Wind Waker. But like it just stops at some point and it becomes a different song. Every time it started, I was like, are we on Outside Island?
All right, this one from Kevin Stone. He said, this game is real good. My friend told me about it a few years ago. I didn't finish it, but I got through a good portion. Go back and finish it. He probably got past the harder part of the game. So yeah, definitely, I would say finish it. Yeah, also, from Tim Wiley, said, I played a fan translation. One of, if not the most playable NES RPG today. Love the atmosphere and pretty much everything about it, which I was not expecting comments like this that came out. This one from... Really cool. Yeah, that was cool. From Zach Reedy, said it's a good game. Played the fan translation not too long after it was first released. Holy crap, this translation hack is 20 years old.
I want to point out that Ben Reeves from Game Informer previously reviewed this and said it was the best version of a Metroidvania he had ever played. Like, I wouldn't laugh. I think I would. I think it was really. I really enjoyed it. I liked the exploration a lot. I like all the areas. I liked how much everything fit. I like how much of an Arclay Mansion prototype it was. How everything fit back into itself.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And I got 2 last comments to read, and then we'll be done with this part. From Michael Hughes. So, did anyone track down and watch the movie? Everyone but me, Mike.
Yeah,
everyone but me.
It wasn't that hard to track down. It was type in "Sweet Home Japanese" on YouTube, and it's the first result. So
I didn't care. I care now. I'm a little bummed at myself that I didn't bother, but
it is a long movie, so be ready for that. Although it doesn't feel like it. Like around the middle, it feels long, but then like the last 50 minutes, like it just keeps going, and you're like, okay, like, all right.
I might watch it now. Oh, and from Danny Palacio, I just heard that this game was what RE was based on. Yep, pretty much. And its spiritual predecessors, I've been calling it when I was posting for the questions.
Yep. Just like what's his name said, Mikami. That's exactly what they were going for.
It's weird to think that if this game didn't exist, then we wouldn't have Resident Evil. Or what Resident Evil would have been. Like they built it off of a different style.
It's just a trip and a half to think. But Resident Evil's monsters were supposed to be supernatural at the beginning too. Just
what if instead of like basing it off of this horror game, they based off like Friday the 13th or like
it's actually like a culmination of things too, because if we didn't have George Romero, then Capcom wouldn't have looked at that and been like, oh, zombies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this game, George Romero, that movie, that guy who got killed by the Yakuza. It's all those things.
That basically, thank God for Haiti and the Yakuza for giving us Resident Evil.
Yeah, thank you.
oh god.
All right, I
They
think
got a
it's time
bunch
to
of
move on.
racists went to Haiti and wrote about zombies so that George Romero could make a really good
Shuffle
movie about
box.
it.
Stu, you want to go first?
Sure. I wasn't really sure going into this game what I was going to feel about it, and I ended up really enjoying it. And I imagine that's in no small part because of how much of a Resident Evil prototype this is. But just like the entire time I was playing this, I was thinking about our Penumbra episode where I made everyone play Penumbra, and everyone was like, "Yeah, this game was okay," and I was like, "Yeah, but the historical significance of it is why I like it." And for the historical significance of this game alone, and the cover art, which we did not talk about, but the cover art it's the movie and the game essentially is the same cover art, and it's fucking phenomenal. It's so good looking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my God, it's like a beautiful like watercolor with these bright reds and really deep blues. It is an absolutely beautiful cover. I think just like the history of this game, what we got from it, and the cover alone, I would put it on my shelf. But I'm going to go the extra mile and say I actually really enjoyed playing it. It held up extremely well. The fights were fun. The exploration was fun. The amount of information they like hinted at throughout the game of giving you little clues about the story, I really, really enjoyed all that. So yeah, I think I would put both the game and the movie on my shelf.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Jesse?
I'm gonna have to second that shelf. Get me a fan downloaded custom built cartridge made in bright red plastic with that bitchin' label on it, and a copy of the movie, Laserdisc preferably. And yeah, it's a slow burn, and it's one that I really think will keep you in as long as the puzzles don't scare you away too much. It's got just enough of a balance, I think, between the battle system and the environmental hazard sections, and it's just a joy. It's a joy to unlock and just go deeper and deeper and deeper into this game, and until you get to the end, and you're just like, what the fuck did I just go through? Like, that's, for me, that's like my favorite experience of the horror game, when you're just kind of flabbergasted at the end of it and you need to think about it for a bit.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it was partly your fault that Stefan this game. So
I won't say that, but I will say I did at least. I should have warned all of you, but I did warn him. At least I was like, make sure you play that one early. Give it extra time.
Yeah. That's why, like, in the group chat, I think it was like a week or two before we even got near this game, I was like, guys, go read a manual, get acclimated, figure it out.
which one was the one that beat it about 5 minutes before we started recording? Which one was that again?
Not me, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, it wasn't you. Yeah,
Is that me on the Golden Sun episode?
I don't remember, but yes, I did not remember that memory until you brought it up.
We also did that on Parasite Eve too. I think.
Yeah, we did.
Like 10
Stu
minutes before.
Woke up, played Parasite Eve all day, and we had to postpone the recording about 2 hours so he could beat it, and then we did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
let's say that
Fucking
Golden Sun.
ouch.
Golden Sun was like me and I think it was me and DJ were like minutes before the episode started. We both finished the game, shut off our computers, turned our computers back on, joined the Skype call. Like, that was over the course of 5 minutes that we did that. Some games are long, and sometimes I can't start until Friday, and sometimes I can't start until Sunday. Parasite Eve was a nightmare. That one was. I love that game so much, but goddamn, like I basically put 2 full days into it
in one day.
It was like,
I think Stefan also beat that one in the last minute too, right before we recorded. I think it was both of you.
I think that was an episode where I finished the game. Like, we did the recording, I shut my computer off and I went to sleep. And I was like, I'll give you the episode tomorrow.
That was back when I was off on Mondays. I didn't care. Now, unfortunately, I work.
Ooh, man, I know that feeling.
But hey, this was my last 6-day week, so I'm finally done doing overtime for at least a little while. So I'm happy. Very happy man. Oh, Stefan, how about you? Shelf or box?
Yeah, so I just like this game surprised the hell out of me. I thought I was gonna die every second. The reason I died five times right at the beginning. And I'm gonna go ahead and say that this isn't even a hard game. It's an easy game. You just have to figure it out, which is the hardest part. But no, I love this game. I'm gonna throw it on my shelf. It was everything I didn't think it was gonna be. It literally, like, how great it's made, like the level design, the feel of the mansion, the music, the enemies, the RPG elements I actually like too, which is weird. I don't know why I like them. But yeah,
they work.
They worked, and they, even though they didn't really play a big role, they worked for what they were going for. And part of like the call system to have people calling people to help you kind of felt like a horror movie to me, because you split up in groups and then you call people when something's about to attack you. So it kind of does feel like a horror movie in that way, which is what I think they were going for. Because you can't do that in Resident Evil unless like Barry is sniffing some mellow yellow or something, you know. But
like how many legit horror games do you see actually get pulled off on the NES? Like really, like Friday the 13th wasn't, well, semi scary.
How many horror games do you see get pulled off? Like we haven't, like I would say only in the last 10 years have we started getting really good horror games. It's rare to see a game from before like 2010 that was really good and really legitimately scary.
You mean like Silent Hill 2, maybe?
Well, yeah, so it's rare. They're out there, but like the original Resident Evil, the original Silent Hill. After a certain point, Resident Evil stopped being scary.
Yeah,
same thing with Silent Hill. After a certain point, stopped being scary.
After 3.
And that's why we need to take into account that even though this game was made in 1989, back then this probably scared the shit out of people, just like I always say the Universal horror monsters probably did at that time.
I watched
this game is still creepy as hell.
I watched Creature of the Black Lagoon when I was a kid. That scared the shit out of me.
Yeah,
now it's like my favorite thing.
And Nightmare on Elm Street is another of the horror games for NES that I was thinking of that I never played.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but like that's not scary. Like
I don't know about that.
Although
we'll find out. I'm assuming it'll be on the show.
The theme to the NES version for that one is a pretty good banger, though. I got to give it that.
Slashers have never been scary to me. With the exception of like maybe the first Halloween, slashers have never been like that scary.
Oh, you guys should play Halloween on Atari someday.
Yeah, we're not playing Atari.
I have a couple horror games that Mike might kick me off the show for putting on the list.
Hey, remember when you joined the show, you're only joining to be a guest, even though the post said to be co-host, but you're only a guest. Remember?
I wrote one down where I was like, Mike will definitely play this, but he's not going to be happy with me. He might actually get mad at me. I'll just say I put a Fatal Frame Crimson Butterfly on the list.
Hey, I got save states. I'm cool. I got save states. I'm cool with it. So
we'll see.
I don't care. All right, great. I should go next. Shelf or box. This has been our longest shelf or box in a while. We just keep talking. I actually, when I first played this game, as I've said earlier in this episode, fucking hated it. Was angry. Was swearing at Stefan. I was messaging like, I ain't gonna fucking finish this shit. I can't believe we put this game on this list. And I'm telling my wife this is bullshit. And then I cooled down. I sat down. I started watching a YouTube video of it, and it didn't explain anything. I just watched the guy play it. I sat back down, hooked up my emulator, and I started following the guy room for room, exactly how he played it, and stopped reading the guide. And after about an hour in, I started to kind of change on this game. Like, it started, I still didn't like it. And about 3 hours into this game, it really like grew on me. Like, I actually was having a good time. Like, I was enjoying the puzzles. I didn't feel so overwhelmed. I still don't like the fact that there's tons and tons of items that you don't need spread throughout the game everywhere just to confuse you.
Mm-hmm.
That was annoying. We haven't touched on that. And there's some really weird items that do things that make no sense. Like fire will get rid of like a red barrier or something that makes no sense.
Oh yeah, when the room catches on fire.
Yeah,
the crossbow.
That was a fan translation issue because
for whatever reason.
When I picked it up, it was definitely a fire extinguisher, but they couldn't fit that in, so they called it the Fire X.
Okay. Or the part where you use boards, you can put over gaps to climb over a gap, but if you walk over too many characters, after too many times, the wood will break, and then your character will fall in a hole, and you got to pull them back out. Like shit like that made me irritated, which I forgot to mention earlier.
Something
it's going on the shelf. It's going to go on the shelf because I did genuinely enjoy it at the end, and I felt really proud of myself for finishing it. But I would if you're interested, watch the guy play it with YouTube and follow along step for step. And after a while, the game will click. I mean, yes, you're cheating in quotations in one sense, but that's why I enjoyed this game. And now I'm going to recommend it to people. Like I'm asking to say, hey, give it a try. Don't go in blind. Listen to this episode first because we explain a decent amount of the functions, and watch a YouTube video, and then you'll start to kind of understand this game, and you'll probably have a good time. Like I'm glad that it ended up on the show, and we got another Resident Evil off the list now.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the nature of the NES games and the games like that. Other people wouldn't really give a fair shake, like Friday the 13th. Everyone just hates that game because it's LJ Ed. Woo! But we didn't because we actually gave it a fair shake and looked at it, which I think is unique. Gem. Yeah,
I try to find something to enjoy in anything I watch or play.
So how about Conker's Bad Fur Day?
There'll be something I will find in that game that I will like. I'll watch I went through a period where I just watched back when Netflix first started. I remember the only thing that was on Netflix was horror movies. I don't know if anyone remembers this. When Netflix first started, it basically could only get the rights for a bunch of shitty horror movies. And so I was just like, I'm going to watch every horror movie on Netflix. Fuck it. And some of them are so bad and so unwatchable, but I'll be sitting there yeah, that scammer is pretty good. Okay, I'll enjoy that. The design on that character is actually pretty nice. I like some trashy. I can recognize that things are trash and still find enjoyment in them.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I've noticed that. And do you want to introduce Stu? Do you want to introduce what we're playing next week since it's your pick?
Sure. I actually know this one now.
Okay.
I looked it up before the show started so that I would know ahead of time.
It's also in the outline I sent you.
Yeah, I don't read this.
Thanks.
No, what's funny is I look at them and then I forget what game we're doing as we're talking. So I always I'll read them. I'm like, don't forget. And then inevitably I forget. Next week we are playing another early progenitor to a popular series, playing Grand Theft Auto 2, the top-down open world shooter.
It'll
be a blast to the past. Which actually takes place.
You can explain it next week. I'm trying to figure out why you picked.
It's a blast to the past that takes place in the future, which is actually already in the past now, and I think it's set in Anywhere USA. It's the name of the city.
I've already
Liberty City till 3, right?
Yeah, 3 was Liberty City. Yeah,
I think a good one.
Literally Anywhere City. I played that game as a fucking kid, and I had not thought about it in years. And then we started this podcast, and I was like, "Ooh, that might be a good one to throw in there."
I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but we should mention it next week. There's a commercial to that game that we all need to talk about.
Oh, well, I think I know which one you're talking about.
It's super bizarre. We'll talk about it.
It's the one that ends up setting up GTA 3, kind of.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that.
You have to send me the link so I can watch it before the recording, so I'm not left out like I did in this one. Or I should have watched the damn movie. That's my choice, not you. Two quick things. Another quick thing I want to say is one, Stefan did an awesome drawing of us on the cover of Sweet Home, which will eventually someday this year be on a shirt that we will have in the shirt shop. Someday this year it will open up.
Yes, I promise.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be the next 2 months. Now that I'm done with 6 days, I'm gonna help Stu finish it up so we can get those up because I want a shirt. Yes. And I want to sell you shirts.
Dibs on a shirt.
Every time I'm like, okay, I should be free coming up, and then it's just a shitload of basically every time I start a week and go okay, this shouldn't be that bad of a week. It's like when Mike starts an episode of this podcast and going, this should be a short one. It's the same exact thing happens.
Yeah. I thought that. This one might be only an hour and a half. We're already an hour 40. I'm this one might be under an hour. Yeah, who am I kidding?
It's always like that though for us. That's why I just barely finished the fucking game because I thought I was gonna have all this time this week and I didn't.
That's because it's a stupid podcast, Stefan. Remember?
Oh
stupid
yeah.
podcast. I made that joke on the previous episode, but it happened again. Where happened to Stefan again, where someone was like, he wanted to do something with him. Like, I gotta play the game for the podcast. She's like, you stupid podcast.
So I still haven't finished listening to Brave Fencer Musashi, but if anyone wants to know and they were curious because I wasn't able to be on that episode, I was actually leaning towards putting it on my shelf. I didn't finish it, but that's the feeling I had from what I did play.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
And Jesse, do you have anything you want to plug before we wrap the plugs?
No, I don't have any projects going on, although I do think I'll be popping back around here sometime soon. Well, when the time's right.
2 weeks she'll be back on the show.
Oh,
which I've already announced.
Spoil the mystery, man.
I already announced on Facebook. Well, we're doing Resident Evil 3 Nemesis after we're doing GTA 2, right before the release of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis Remake, where we're going to miss Stefan because he's going to vanish into Raccoon City for a week or two. Hopefully only 1 week, but, you know.
Just like Prince.
Yeah, and then the week after that, I'm going to go down to Florida and get the coronavirus, so that'll be fun.
And you can't miss that episode that week because we have a very special guest coming back.
I am slightly worried about that week because I'm going down to Florida and we were like looking at things to do, and then the coronavirus just hit there, and they're like, "Well, we're closing down Disneyland, we're closing down Universal." And we're like,
I don't want to go there anymore.
I'm a little worried about traveling there now. I don't want to end up in a quarantine in a airport for 2 weeks.
No, I don't either. I'll be bummed not to have you on the show.
Be like, to be telling some like CDC doctor, like, "You don't understand. I've got a podcast.
I just got to set up my laptop and microphone. It'll be okay."
Sir,
don't worry,
Stu. I am.
Just when you go, just remember to put in your briefcase some thoughts and prayers. You'll be fine.
Yeah. I'll just order some masks now so I can get them 6 months later.
Yeah.
I might have a guy. Might be able to get some face masks.
2 weeks from now, when we talk about Resident Evil 3, when the coronavirus has overtaken the country, then we'll talk about that. So it'll be perfect.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to coming back and visiting and hopefully giving you guys a little bit of a history lesson because there was so much going on in 1999 when they made that.
Mm-hmm. When they made the coronavirus?
Yeah, that's also a joke. Some people thought it was man-made. But also want to give a quick shout out to our awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Balby, aka Mike Stoney, from his EP Bite the Bullet, the song at the Cool Kid Squad that you have heard maybe 80 times at this point, because this will be our 80th episode altogether that we have produced. Only number 61, but anyone who's been listening to us for a while, they know how crazy we are.
I think technically all human diseases are man-made because they transform in humans.
Okay.
I'm going to take credit for it. Fuck it.
I'll take it. I also want to give a shout out to that podcast I had mentioned earlier, but I can't remember the name all of a sudden, so I'm going to pull it right back up. Some of my friends read comics. It's pretty good. So if you're looking for our comic book podcast, definitely take a listen to them. They're on Stitcher, which is a very important thing to me. I always check out because some podcasts are not on Stitcher for some reason. All right, this episode has been on long enough. We're on Stitcher. Yeah, we're on everything but Pandora, only because I haven't resubmitted to Pandora since.
We're like the coronavirus, baby. We're everywhere.
We are all over South America. We're all over Asia. People download. There's always somebody who downloads us in a lot of different countries, and it makes like almost entire South America. There's somebody listening to this episode right now, or listening to a episode of this.
Oh God! Not one of you has made a joke about going viral yet, and I am severely disappointed.
I was about to.
Wait till Resident Evil 3.
I am let me down, all of you.
I think that about wraps up this episode.
Shortness of breath.
I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank Jesse for joining us tonight and coming back in 2 weeks, and then coming back not that long after that at some point for another good horror game. But I don't remember what month that I set that in.
Like I'm not worried about.
I don't even remember.
I have been like, I'm convinced I'm getting sick today, so I'm actually worried I'm not going to be here next week.
That would be bad.
It would be bad, but
it's your pick.
I'll power it out.
Okay. All right. I want to thank everyone for listening, and we will see you next week, guys. Everyone have a wonderful week, wonderful night, wonderful week, something like that.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.